So let's dive into this. It's early March 2026, and a conflict in the Persian Gulf is just spiraling out of control, leading to this massive global showdown. And right at the center of it all, a ship that is really unlike anything we've seen before.
Then, on March 2nd, we get this bombshell statement from U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM. It just sliced right through all the noise and confusion of the conflict, and what they confirmed was huge. A really unique Iranian naval ship had been hit, and that single act, well, that was the spark that was about to set off a crisis at the most critical energy choke point on the entire planet.
Which, of course, brings us to the big question, right? How on earth did a converted cargo ship, basically a retrofitted freighter, become so important, so strategic, that taking it out could put the entire global economy on the brink of collapse? Well, that is exactly what we're going to break down here.
Okay, so first things first, let's look at the attack itself. Now, it's important to remember this strike was just one piece of a much bigger conflict. But the target, the Irish Shahid Bagheri, wow, it was a naval asset unlike pretty much anything else out there.
So, what was this thing? What exactly was the Shahid Bagheri? Its story, it's really pretty fascinating.
What's so incredible here is where this ship came from. I mean, it wasn't built to be a warship at all. Nope. It actually started its life way back in 2000 as the Pararin, just a regular old South Korean container ship. Its job was to haul cargo, not project military power. It was only later that it ended up in the hands of the IRGC Navy. That's Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' Navy. And its transformation was just unbelievably fast. I mean, between 2022 and 2024, it undergoes this top-secret conversion. Then, boom, in early 2025, it pops out as a full-blown warship. And get this, just a little over a year after it officially joined the Navy, it was on the bottom of the Gulf of Oman.
You know, this whole thing really shows us a new way of thinking in naval warfare. It's this emerging idea where instead of dropping billions and billions of dollars on a traditional aircraft carrier, a country can just take a civilian ship, convert it, and turn it into a floating base for drones. It's a really cost-effective way to project power way, way beyond your own coastline.
And the Shahid Bagheri, man, it was the perfect example of this. This thing wasn't just some simple carrier. Oh no, it was a full-on, multi-purpose mothership. We're talking a runway for drones that was almost 600 feet long. It had helicopters. It could even launch more than 30 fast attack boats from inside its own hull. It was basically a floating fortress just packed to the gills with offensive power.
Okay, so we've got this incredible ship, but how does sinking it fit into the wider conflict? Well, it turns out it was part of a much bigger operation.
Yeah, the strike on the carrier was anything but a one-off event. It was a key piece of this huge, coordinated air campaign called Operation Epic Fury. It all kicked off at the end of February, and its goals were massive. Basically, to systematically take apart Iran's military capability piece by piece. And when I say comprehensive, I mean it. They were aiming to hit everything. Air defenses, ballistic missile sites, drone factories, and, here's the key part for our story, naval assets, just like the Shahid Bagheri. So you see, the ship was really just one piece, albeit a very important one, in a much, much larger strategic puzzle.
And this definitely wasn't some isolated incident out on the water. Sure, the Shahid Bagheri was the big name, the most high-profile target that went down, but CENTCOM reported it was actually one of at least 11 Iranian vessels that were taken out by U.S. forces. This was a clear, concerted push to control the seas.
Okay, let's pull back and look at the big picture now, because these attacks in the Gulf of Oman, they sent these massive shockwaves around the entire globe, and it all boils down to one single, narrow stretch of water.
So, in response to Operation Epic Fury, Iran finally made the move they've been threatening for decades. They declared the Strait of Hormuz closed. Just like that. And that one move immediately put a chokehold on the world's energy supply. Shipping lines just stopped. Tankers dropped anchor outside the strait, everyone just waiting, totally unsure what would happen next.
So why is this such a big deal? It all comes down to one number, 20%. Think about that. 1/5, a full 20% of all the petroleum the world uses every single day passes through that one narrow strait. When that closes, the impact on the global energy market isn't just big, it's immediate and it's severe.
And here's where the impact gets really lopsided. While a crisis like this hurts everyone, the pain isn't shared equally. Not at all. It's felt most sharply in Asia.
I mean, a mind-boggling 84% of all the crude oil that comes out of the Gulf is headed east. And you can see it right here. This just shows you how incredibly dependent these huge industrial economies are on that single waterway. For countries like Japan, South Korea, and India, the Strait of Hormuz is not just some shipping lane on a map. It is their economic lifeline. It's an existential energy artery.
And the economic fallout was instant, and it was brutal. Oil prices skyrocketed by double digits, like overnight. Key players like Qatar, they just stopped all production of liquefied natural gas, and Saudi Arabia, just as a precaution, shut down its biggest refinery. The whole global supply chain just seized up.
So, when you put it all together, what does it all mean? What's the big takeaway? Well, this whole crisis, which all started with this one converted ship, it teaches us some really critical lessons about what modern warfare looks like.
Really, the story of the Shahid Bagheri shows us three big things. First, it shows that with a bit of ingenuity, you can turn a relatively cheap cargo ship into a strategic weapon, something valuable enough to kick off a global crisis. Second, it's a harsh reminder that our entire global economy is dangerously dependent on just a handful of these maritime choke points. And finally, it proves that you don't need a giant, expensive navy anymore to cause a massive amount of economic damage.
And this threat, which came from an IRGC advisor on the very same day the carrier was hit, it just lays the stakes out there plain and simple. It really highlights how serious the standoff is. It's a crystal clear declaration that they are willing to use the economy as a weapon of war.
And all of this really leaves us with one last big provocative question about the future of naval power. I mean, if a nation can take a simple cargo ship and turn it into a strategic weapon that can hold global trade hostage, what does that mean for the traditional multi-billion-dollar supercarriers and navies of the world? It kind of makes you wonder, are they becoming obsolete? That's a question military strategists are going to be wrestling with for a long, long time, long after things in the Strait of Hormuz have quieted down.